Hello, hello, Think and Grow Chick world. How is everybody? Just waiting for some people to pop in so I'm not talking to thin air. As you can see, I'm not outside this time. I'm in my office. It's kind of cold outside. Texas decided that it wanted to be go back to winter instead of summer, so no walk today, or at least not a walking and talk live stream. But anyway, I was doing some journaling this morning, and it really inspired today's topic. Honestly, my journaling sessions inspire most topics, but as you can imagine, I journal a lot about my business to process things and to just kind of figure out which direction I'm going in next and what's going on. And so I've been thinking a lot about the direction of Think and Grow Chick and just really reinforcing what Think and Grow Chick is about, what is my actual mission. And just a side note, I think it's important for anybody who has not just a business, but a nonprofit, a movement, a mission, anybody who's creating anything and you're putting it out into the world, every time it gets to a new level, it's really important that you take some time and make sure that you're reminding yourself, why is it that you are doing this? Because it can be very easy to kind of get sucked into the flow of what everybody else is doing. And so when I first got started with Think and Grow Chick back in 2009, I literally started it because there were no personal development resources for millennial women, that targeted African American women, for women like me just in general, online. And all of the stuff that I was reading on my personal development journey was like Stephen Covey and Brian Tracy, and like those are the only resources. And so I just started blogging about this because nobody else was talking about it. All the blogs and the websites at the time that were focused on my demographic were focused on like beauty, fashion, natural hair, all of that. And so I will raise my hand and say that I was a pioneer, at least in this genre. And so now fast forward 2017, almost a decade later, there's tons of personal development resources for our set, for women like us, which is really awesome, and I totally commend it. But in the sea of everybody doing, not everybody, but a lot of this kind of work being present, it's just really important for me to be like, okay, why did I do this again? Who am I really looking for? What is this really about? And so I love this concept of that chick, and I think I've mentioned it on previous podcasts or maybe other live streams, but this concept of that chick, I actually picked up way back in like 2009 or 2010 when I was on my natural hair journey, and I was on all of these like hair care forums and like beauty forums or whatever. And so there was a really popular one, and they talked about like hair and beauty and everything, but they had other threads as well about like fashion and relationships and just like random stuff that the women on this thread would talk about. And so somebody had posted or started a thread or a conversation about how does a person become that girl? I don't think they called it that chick, but I'm Think and Grow Chick, so everything is chick. But the name of the thread was like basically like, are you that girl? And how do you become that girl? And what the original poster was talking about, she was like, I see women who seem to always be really put together. They're always well dressed. Their makeup's always done, their hair is always done. And it's not just like for a special occasion. They seem to be that way as a lifestyle. Like they're always put together. Even when they're not overly dressed up, they just always look nice, even if they're wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And so she was soliciting responses on the thread like, are any of you basically that girl? And if you are, can you give me tips? Like, what is it that you're doing to always, look your best and always be this way? And so it kind of turned into this movement on that thread, and it's on longhaircareforum.com, so you can still go look at it. I think every year they've been reposting this like that girl thread where basically it's become a challenge where these women are like, yes, I'm stepping my game up. I want to, be polished basically all the time. And so way back from 2009, like every year they've been doing it, since all the way up to like 2016. And so I was just really fascinated by that concept even back then when I was like a scruffy college girl trying to see how I can look more polished on a budget, of this idea of people who, or women who want to be excellent, not just for like, oh, I'm dressing up for a special occasion or something like that, but they want to be excellent basically as a lifestyle. And so I started to think about this in the concept of Think and Grow Chick more holistically, not just in terms of how you look, but in terms of what the women I'm really communicating with are seeking. And so this became apparent recently because, as you guys know, I do a lot of consultation calls for people who are interested in working with me for business, and I have an enrollment coordinator now, which is like really awesome. So she's helping me handle a lot of these calls. And I've had calls like this before, but since this was her first time taking the calls, she had an experience that she shared with me the other day, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I think it's time for me to do another live stream or podcast or whatever to address this, where basically someone had, reached out, fill out the application or whatever, wanted to work with me in a business context, and so she was handling the call and she was talking to them, and they were basically like, they want to make $1 million in 30 days. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I'm exaggerating a little bit. It wasn't $1 million, but it was a lot. Like, they wanted to make like significant 5 figures, and they wanted to do it in 30 days. And my enrollment coordinator was like, okay, well, where's your business now? Like, what are your sales right now? What kind of community have you built? Like, are you at least doing like 4 figures and you want to scale to that? Like in 30 days, kind of what are you thinking? And it was basically like, no, like this person had like no business whatsoever, no branding whatsoever, no email, like no nothing. And she was trying to help, like, well, I don't think Courtney can do that for you, but she's got this other program, it's starting in 2 months. Maybe that might be of interest. Or she's got, and the person was like super impatient, was like, no, I can't wait that long. I just want to like basically make $1 million like tomorrow. And so my enrollment coordinator kept pressing and was like, this is kind of not realistic. Like, what's going on? And basically the person was like, well, they had a situation at work or whatever where they were away for a time or on leave or something like that, and so they were going back to work at a certain deadline, and basically they just wanted to come to me so that I could make magic for them, so that they wouldn't have to go back to work. And so I was like, what? We were talking about this. She was like, yeah, sorry, the person just had unrealistic expectations. And I was thinking about this, and I was like, okay, it's been great that my community has been growing, but I think it's important to remind people exactly like the context of why I do what I do. Think and Grow Chick does not exist to help you make money or to help you quit your job. I'm helping women literally become their most powerful selves and to become a force to be reckoned with in the world. That's essentially what I want. And that's what I mean by that chick. Like, I want to create an army of women who are that chick. Like, when they walk into the room, heads turn, the atmosphere changes. Like, there's so much power about not only their presence, but what they're able to create, where everybody knows, like, when she's around, like, stuff is going down, things are happening, like, this chick is amazing. And it's funny, I almost called this like a bad chick, because I love that, but I know there's a lot of baggage around like bad chick, because I feel like, trap hip hop and like rappers have turned it into like something bad, where it's like, oh, women with a fat booty or whatever. And I'm like, what? That is not what I'm talking about. But, in the original bad chicks, or just that chick in general, like women who are a force to be reckoned with. And so my resources, whether it's personal development resources or get your finances together or start a business or whatever, or quit your job, it's a means to an end. Like, it's not the end in and of itself. Like, I'm not here for somehow creating magic and helping people make $1 million in 30 days so that you can just, because you don't want to work. Like, you just hate your job and you don't want to work. And so now you can sit at home and just do nothing and, count your ducats and go shopping at, Christian Louboutin. Like, that's not it. The reason why I wanted to quit my job was because I knew that there was a lot of things that I wanted to do, not just for myself, but for my family, for my community, for creating a legacy. You guys know I've been talking about rental properties a lot because I'm like researching a lot about that. I want to buy up, property and, rent it out to deserving families and things, and just create a legacy of wealth for my family so that I'm passing things down so that my daughters, when they want to start a business or when they're graduating from college, they don't have to necessarily necessarily do something that's not in their passion, or something that they're not good at, or something that they don't want to do strictly because they have to do it for money. I want my family and then my community to understand how to harness your God-given gifts and create economic freedom for yourself. That's what this is really about. And I'm really about helping people create freedom in general, whether it's economic freedom, whether it's time freedom. And you can't talk about time freedom without talking about your career. And that's why I talk about quitting your job if you hate it. And again, if you love your job, you're a teacher, you're a scientist, you're an engineer, whatever, and you do amazing work and you love it, like, by all means, stay there. But if you're just working a job just to keep the lights on, that's a waste of your life. Like, you shouldn't have to work a job just to make money. Like, you're talented enough. We've all been given enough gifts, and we live in Western society. We live in America with the internet in 2017 where this is possible. Like, nobody should be financially struggling or doing things that they hate because there's just too many resources available. So that's my personal belief. And so I encourage that to get people into the game. Like, I knew that I was not going to be able to do the things that I wanted to do in life if I was trapped, an hour driving to a job that, I mean, it was a cool job, I guess, but it wasn't like really in my wheelhouse, staying there for 9 hours and then driving an hour back. Like, that's 11 hours out of my day, 5 days a week that I'm not fully operating in my gift and maximizing my talent. And it's like, yeah, you have the weekends, but you're exhausted, you're doing grocery shopping and dry cleaning and basically preparing for the next week. And I felt like I was on this like cycle and on this like treadmill where I was never going to be able to do the things that I really wanted to do and make the impact that I really wanted to make if I was tied to that kind of career. And again, if that's not your story and you love what you do or whatever, then it's not your story. So this doesn't apply. But for me, I couldn't be tied to that kind of career, and then also tied to that level of income. Like, I didn't want my income limited. I wanted to be able to maximize what I had so that I can continue to roll my money and again create wealth for my family and for my future children and really for my community. And you guys know that I'm super passionate about African American economic empowerment because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's going down, in our communities with our black men, etc. And we could talk about like, oh, we're going to City Hall and we're changing legislation, but never mistake that like money talks in this country. It just does. And I find that other minority communities who have strong economic habits, they're a force to be reckoned with. Like, people don't say certain things to certain communities because, they're just they're quiet, they're not as loud as we are in terms of making our voices heard. Not that that's bad. I think that's good. But I feel like we would be like double trouble if we were as loud as we are and we had like the economic situation on lock. And so a lot of us are just not making strides because we just don't know. And this is super side note. So I was on Twitter and I saw that Refinery 29 had reposted this article or the series that they're doing called Not a Trophy Wife, where I guess they're asking women who make significantly less than their husbands what it feels like, I guess, to be in that situation. And so they had this one article that was featuring this Chinese American couple, and the wife was like worked at a nonprofit and she made like $45,000 a year, and the husband was a pharmacist and so he made like $170,000 a year. And even though the article was focused on like, I guess, her mindset and like how it felt to like make so much less than her husband, I was fascinated by what they were doing because they flipped houses. And she was saying her husband wanted to go back to grad school, and so instead of them like, I don't know, trying to figure out how they could save enough money for that or whatever, they were buying all these rental properties and they were, flipping them and rehabbing them or whatever. And she literally said, it was like a quote in the article where she was like, it's fun flipping the houses, but it can be stressful at times. And sometimes I'm wondering like, man, how many houses do we have to buy until we can have the cash flow to pay for his education? But I was just amazed that was their mindset. And they were like in their late 20s, early 30s. And I'm like, the fact that they were like, we're going to take our income and go buy investment properties to fund something that we want to do. Most of us, we would like try to get our credit up so that we can go into debt in order to, get the student loan in order to pay for our grad school or whatever. Like, again, it's just a mindset thing. And so I just say that to say, I feel like for our communities at times, it's like a lack of education around how money actually works and different alternatives. We tend to think in terms of like going to work, getting, paid money for our time and labor, and then trying to either stack that money up, which is good. We know like we don't want to go into debt, so we try to stack that money up in order to pay cash for things. But I find that there are other groups, in this country who understand beyond cash. They understand cash flow, right? And that's something that's passed down generation to generation, where I'm sure her parents taught her, like, this is what you do when you get your first job. I need you to find, a little income property or whatever. You need to flip that. Like, that's going to be cash flow. It's going to be part of your retirement, your portfolio, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I'm doing a detour. This is not, about income investment or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of options that we don't know about. And so I want to personally learn them, and I want to be on the forefront, teaching people how to do those things. And so I say all that to say that's why I do what I do. That's why I harp on self-discipline, not just for you all, but for myself. Like every day I have to remind myself, be self-disciplined. Don't procrastinate. That's why I harp on, financial topics, whether it's saving or learning to get your income up. That's why I harp on, being business minded. And even if you do work a 9-to-5 job and you love it, that you should still be focused on, creating income in addition to saving the income that you have. That's what all this is for. It's not to make money for money's sake. It's not to quit your job to quit your job's sake. It's not to be positive just to be a positive person. Like, I'm personally very missionally driven, and I want to get to a place where I'm that chick, like at 40 something, where it's like, everybody knows, like, Courtney plays no games, is going down. If she comes in a room or she says this is happening or she's doing this or she's putting her money and her resources behind this, like, it's happening. I want to get to a place where I'm so powerful personally that if I put my mind to something, it has to happen. Like, it's just happening. And so I want that for so many other women, because I see women who have big goals and big dreams, and there's this, like, they're timid, like they don't know if they can make it happen. They really desire it and they want to, and they're like driven from that perspective, but they're like, I don't know if I have the internal resources, whether it's like self-discipline, personal mastery, having mastery over my emotions. Like, I don't know if I have what it takes on the inside. And then if they get that together and they're like, okay, I'm good, I'm more self-disciplined, I can get it. They don't know if they have, if they can get past those external limitations, like, their finances might be messed up, or they're working a job that they don't hate, and they're like, Courtney, I'm driven and I'm really disciplined or whatever, but my job is not letting me do this, or my finances are not letting me do this. And so that's why Think and Grow Chick focuses on both angles. It's like focusing on what you need to do internally to remove those limitations that are keeping you, from getting where you want to be. And then once you have that mastered, then we move to the external. What can you do externally? And for most people, the external limitations are time and money. And so money is self-explanatory in terms of how to get that, but time, you spend most of your waking hours at work or doing some function of like work. And so we have to have that conversation about how can you structure your work in such a way so that you have that time. And so for Think and Grow Chick, and for what I'm here for, I'm not looking for people who just want a quick fix to just do whatever. They just want to, I just want to quit my job just so that I can watch more TV and be shopping, but they're not missionally driven. I'm looking for that chick who is beyond just whatever, making money or quitting her job. I'm looking for that chick who wants to be like a force to be reckoned with. And so whether you want to call it a bad chick, girl, boss woman, like whatever makes you do the shoulder shake when you say it, like, yeah, she's that chick, the head nod, like, that's what I'm here for. So I want to be that chick, and I'm looking for other women who want to be that chick too, who aren't just like looking to like try to like half-hearted, use these resources and then like just get to some level. Because here's the thing, most people, I think in our country and beyond, mistakenly think that their happiness is going to come when they just get that next thing. So it's like, I'll be happy when I can afford to buy a bigger house. I'll be happy when I can finally get that Mercedes. I'll be happy when I can finally get that man. I'll be happy, when whatever. Even I'll be happy when I can finally put $10,000 in the bank account. And I know for me personally, I will never truly be happy unless I am fully exhausting myself in the purpose that I feel like God has given me, period. I could have whatever, or all of this stuff could be taken away. Like, it doesn't matter. As long as I feel like I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I end every day like totally poured out and exhausted in a good way. Like, you know, when you have a really good workout and you're like, oh my goodness, I gotta like sit down, I gotta lay down, but it was so good, you pushed yourself to your limits, or maybe you played a sport or something for fun, like maybe you do volleyball with your friends on the weekend, and then you guys like go to the bar afterwards or something. Like, I have friends who do like adult kickball leagues or something, but you do something that you enjoy, and you just put your all into it, and you just like lay it out. Like, that's when I'll be happy. And I love that because I have an opportunity to be happy every day. I'm not waiting for the next thing. Every day I can find ways to be creative and exhaust myself in what I feel like my purpose is. And, you know, I'm happy versus just waiting until, you know, oh, and not until I get that Audi truck, not until I have 2.5 kids and a dog and a white picket fence, you know. That's not what it's really about. And so I'm just looking for people who really aren't afraid to hold back and, you know, not leave it in reserves. Like, I want us to be that chick. Like, even the role models that I look to, like, I was thinking about, like, who would I consider that chick? And so I don't know if you guys know her, but her name's Melody Hobson. She is like the CEO and whatever, premier partner or founder of this group, Ariel Investments. She's this African-American woman who, like, one of the few who runs like a very successful investment company. She's also known because she's George Lucas's wife or whatever, but she was bad, you know, in her own right before those two even got together. And so she does a lot of like, what do you call it, features on like the Today Show or something, and they'll bring her in. And I'm like, that's a bad chick, you know, like, she's that chick. Like, not only is she like, you know, stylish and got her own thing together, and she like runs this amazing company, but she's like passionate about, you know, economic development or whatever. And, you know, she's just doing her thing. You know, I love women who are not necessarily like always super in the forefront. Like, they're not like a Beyonce type or something, but they're just like kind of in the cut a little bit, but everybody, like, the people that matter know who they are, and they know that they can make things happen. And I'm like, I want to be that chick. Or I think of somebody like Desiree Rogers, who's like the CEO of Ebony and Fashion Fair, and you know, formerly worked at the White House and all of that. Like, to me, I'm like, that's a bad chick, you know? She's that chick. Even someone younger, I think about oh, her name is escaping me. How could come on, guys, the ballerina. I love her so much, and I talk about her all the time, and I can't believe her name just escaped me. And I'm sitting here like looking at her in my mind. Come on. Forefront African-American ballerina right now who's like a principal at, is it ABT? No, not Burton. Oh, goodness, this is going to drive me crazy. I think Misty Copeland. Duh. I talk about her all the time, and I read her biography. To me, Misty Copeland is that chick, you know? Yes, Misty Copeland is amazing. The theme that I love with all these women is that, like, they just put their mind to it and they just did it. There was not a lot of like emotional, like, can I do it? Can I not? Like, they just did what had to be done. Like, yeah, there were ups and downs and discouragements or whatever, but they just kept pressing towards ultimately what they wanted. And they knew from the beginning, yes, Misty Copeland, they knew from the beginning that their reason for being was always bigger than themselves. And so Misty Copeland didn't get into ballet until she was like 13 years old. She had a tumultuous situation growing up where her mom jumped from marriage to marriage and, you know, house to house and boyfriend to boyfriend, and they were always moving around, and she had like a bunch of brothers and sisters, and it just wasn't a stable environment, and they didn't have a lot of money to even afford ballet stuff. And she learned dance at 13 at like the Boys and Girls Club of America. And for those who know, in ballet, 13 is like you're retired, like you're too old, because they like the girls to be super young so that their bodies form around the movements that they're doing so that they can be really good with, you know, their art form and their dance. So, you know, people were counting her out since the beginning. And on top of that, being one of the first and only African Americans in the sport. And then, of course, well, the dance or art form or whatever you want to call it. And then, you know, body type being different. You know, she's way curvier, you know, than your average ballerina. And so she was like a pioneer from the beginning. And she always knew, like, from early on that she wanted to do this from a missional perspective, that she wanted this to be something that would inspire girls all over the world who don't necessarily fit the mold. And so she wasn't even doing this just like, oh, because I just want to be an awesome ballerina and just, you know, get the fame and notoriety and get paid. That's why, to me, I'm like, she's that chick, you know? So those are some of just my role models that I think of. People who are like in the forefront, but not necessarily like top of mind, the first people you think of, but they're just kind of like quiet in the background, just making things happen. And so whatever you want to call that chick, you know, use your favorite word. I go back and forth between that chick and bad chick, but I want to inspire and become one myself, but I want to inspire women who are on the way to becoming powerhouses, like forces to be reckoned with, people who have a mission and want these things, whether it's quitting your job or increasing your income or becoming more self-disciplined, not for its own sake, but to be more impactful in their own lives, in their family lives, in their community lives, and in the world. So just raise your hand, who's with me, like, who here is that chick, you know? I'm looking for that chick. Not just people who just want to grab little nuggets of what I'm saying and, ooh, just let me, like, put this together so I could just make some money really fast or whatever. Ooh, let me put this together just so I could save some money really fast and I could just be on my merry way. I want people who are about this life as a lifestyle, right? And so it goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning in the forum where they were asking, oh, who's that girl in terms of she likes to be polished and put together, you know, as a lifestyle, not just for getting dressed up. Well, I'm raising the ante. I'm like, this is beyond just, you know, looking good on a daily basis. I'm looking for women who want to be powerhouses as a lifestyle, like who don't just want to increase their personal power or their personal income or whatever in one area just to get to one thing. I'm looking for women who are like, nah, this is like forever and ever for as long as I live. Like I am trying to be a force to be reckoned with. When I come in the room, the atmosphere changes. So it's almost like if we had a mascot, it would be Storm from the X-Men. Remember Halle Berry played Storm? She was cool. Like she wasn't super crazy or she was like really nice, you know, she was normal. But when it came down to get to business and it was time for her to flex her superpower, like clouds came in, lightning, like the entire atmosphere changed, you know, like the weather moved when Storm decided that the weather wanted to move. And so I want to create an army of women who have that kind of power. And you know this, like you've seen women like this, like start to think about this, even at your jobs or whatever, like certain women who have kind of like a little, you know, when they come in the room, everybody's kind of like, oh, you know, that's that's so-and-so. Yeah, did you hear? Oh my goodness, last week she did whatever. Or did you see that thing that she started? It's amazing. It was, you know, it's already done this or whatever. You want people who are kind of like whispering, you know, about you, like in a good way. Yes, bringing the thunder, Crystal. So that's what I'm here for. So I'm happy. All right. So we got some people here who aspire to be that chick. I aspire to bring you more content to help you be that chick, not because I'm coming from a guru standpoint. I always say I'm not a guru, I'm a guinea pig. Like, your girl wants to be that chick. And so as I learn different things and I'm applying them, basically that's all I do, and that's all Think and Grow Chick ever was. It was me sharing what I'm learning and applying it to my life. And then anytime that I get a step ahead, I'm like, oh, hold on, got to bring other people with me, and I'm teaching it to you. So, all right, just wanted to make sure that I wasn't crazy, you know, because I was getting, whether it was the discovery calls or just posts or people commenting on some of my things, like all the comments in general are very positive, but occasionally I'll get an email from somebody who didn't like something that I said in my podcast, or a comment where somebody doesn't like something, or people who want to argue with me about things and basically want to make excuses like, well, you don't understand my situation. I can't be disciplined because I have 3 kids, or I can't do this because my life is, you know, not that simple, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, clearly you don't want to be that chick, because it doesn't matter what your life situation is, whether you're married, you're not married, you have kids, you don't have kids, you have a college degree, you don't have a college degree, you live in a big city, you live in a rural area. Like, it's about a mindset, you know, of wanting to bring the thunder everywhere that you go, and not just for yourself and for your own sake and just so that you can be like fabulous, even though it's awesome to be fabulous, but so that you can actually affect change and make things happen. Like, isn't that really what we all want in life, is to be able to affect change? And I think sometimes we see those chicks, you know, when that chick walks into the room, the reason people admire her is because it is like having a superpower. It's not everybody can do that. In fact, most people can't do that. Most people said, you know, back 3 months ago in January that they were going to do X, Y, and Z, and they've already fallen off or they've already forgotten or whatever. Most people, if they say that they want to do something and they put their minds to it, they actually cannot make it happen. And that is a tragedy. And that's why I'm like, I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want you to be that kind of person. I want whatever comes out of your mouth is what is happening. Like, you have the ability within yourself to make it happen, and those things that are outside of you externally, you have the ability to influence them and to shape and to mold your environment, because everybody has that power. That's the crazy thing that people don't realize. This is not just for some people. Like, if you are a human being and you were born, like, God has already given you that power. And I'll say, and I said this at a speaking event that I had done a few weeks ago, again, you live in Western society for the most part if you're watching this, and you live in 2017. Do you realize that you are one of the most powerful, wealthiest human beings that has ever walked the face of the planet? The planet. People literally, like, their lifespan, they died at like 50 and 60 because of whatever, dysentery and like crazy diseases. Like, whether it's the technology or the things that we have access to, you are literally one of the most powerful human beings who has ever lived in the history of time. And so you've already been given the power, and then you just happen to have been born in an amazing time. There was no reason why, if you put your mind to something, that you cannot make it happen. And so I'm like, the power is already in you. I'm just here for you and for myself to learn and then to teach. How do we move all the things away that are blocking and inhibiting our natural power, right? You have the power to be disciplined, but it's other things that are getting in the way, bad habits that are crowding it out. So I'm like, all right, how do we work on removing those bad habits? You have the power to believe that you can do anything you want to do, but maybe it was previous situations that has sowed doubt into your mind. So I'm all about, all right, how do we clear out the doubt? And then once we get the internal together, then it's like, ooh, you know, I'm good, I'm ready to go, but there's all these other things externally outside of me that are blocking me. It might be, I don't have supportive family, or I don't have supportive friends, or my job is terrible, or, you know, my finances aren't together. And I'm like, no problem. How can we move those things out the way again so that your natural power can shine and your natural ability can be out in the world doing what you're supposed to do? So that's what this is about. All about that chick. Stacy says 2017, learning and growing, moving all things, the power is in me. That chick, the doubt is gone. Yes. So good. I'm excited because, like I said, I got some people who definitely weren't that chick, who were just, you know, looking for some magic fairy dust to sprinkle on their lives so that they can get one thing and that they could be out. And I was like, I understand that the community has grown and maybe you're not sure about what Think and Grow Chick is about, but we're not here just to, you know, get a quick fix in any area of life. You know, we're not here just to, well, let me just quickly lose 10 pounds. Let me just quickly get $10,000 and then I'm out and then I'll be happy. It's like, no. We want to create a lifestyle of having the power to create anything that we put our minds to. Because maybe later down the road, you might face a different challenge or some other goal that you haven't even thought of about right now. And so if it's just strictly how can you get the tactics and tools to make X, Y, and Z happen, you're going to be out of luck 10 years from now where something else happens. Maybe the economy changes, or maybe something happens in your family, or, I mean, good or bad, and you just have a different goal. If you don't have the personal power to I mean, that's a skill set, like to be able to bring things to bear, to make things come to pass that you put your mind to. And again, unfortunately, with as much as we have in our society, and maybe that's part of the reason why people aren't able to do this, maybe it makes people soft, but with as much as we have, most people, if they say that they want to do something, do not have the power to do it. And I'm like, not on my watch. Anybody who's here in Think and Grow Chick is every day increasing that ability and that personal power to make the things that they put their mind to come to pass. So being that chick means that you are a powerhouse, you bring the thunder, the temperature of the room changes, and I'm really excited to help you guys on that journey. Michelle asks, question, what about those who have an upper edge in their personality? Some folks are more assertive than others, who are more reserved. Where does that come into play? Yeah, that's why I said earlier when I was bringing up examples of who I think are people that are that chick, not necessarily people who are super extroverted, so that's why I didn't name somebody like, Beyonce or whatever, or even Oprah, even though Oprah's fantastic and I definitely think that she qualifies as being that chick. But I find that the most powerful people in the room are the ones that kind of are like, a little reserved. And actually that was one of the best compliments I got like a while back ago in college. So, you guys know my story, how I was like going crazy in school, trying to start a business, lost a scholarship, whatever. Administrator felt bad for me and invited me to this women's conference where they were going to roll out the red carpet for female students who were interested in entrepreneurship to try to encourage us to be entrepreneurs and teach us different things. And so one of the title sponsors, I think it was Home Depot actually, there was a woman there who was in charge of like supplier diversity or whatever, and she was running the entire program. And so, I remember she told me, I can't remember the exact words that she said, but she complimented me and she was like, I know that you have true leadership because you're not one of the ones who feels that they always need to be talking like in a room. Because I guess it was like a big important person had come to like our group or whatever of women, and a lot of the girls were like jumping up and asking questions that didn't really make a lot of sense, but you can tell that people were just jockeying just to like be visible and to be seen so that they can like get their shine with this like important person who was dispensing some advice. And I might have asked a question or not, but I just wasn't like pressed. Like I was honestly there to learn and to absorb the information, and I wasn't worried about showing off or showing that I'm like, hey, I'm smart too. Like I have a question or talk to me about this or whatever. Like I was there to learn. Like I was there to sit at this person's feet. They were like a president of some company or something like that to really learn. And so later the woman who was in charge of the program, she pulled me to the side and she was like, I just want to let you know I'm really impressed with you because I saw, what everybody was doing in the room and people were kind of jumping up, making themselves known. And she was like, I just like that you have leadership and that you don't always have to, you feel like you don't have to be the one that's at the forefront in order to show that you know what you're talking about. And so I think if you're not naturally an extroverted person, you kind of have a little bit of an advantage in that if you work on cultivating your personal power and making things come to pass, like you don't have to say anything in order to do something, right? Like if you say, I want to accomplish this goal, that does not require you to like tell a bunch of people about it or for you to be vocal about it. All it requires is that you master yourself, you become self-disciplined, and you just do what needs to be done in order for it to actually happen. And so if you have a natural tendency to not always be the first one talking, in a lot of circles, and especially when it comes to negotiations and stuff, like if you go to other countries and you're negotiating, the person who's kind of sitting back, with their arms folded and is not really talking that much, people automatically assume that that person is the most powerful person in the room. So I think it has less to do with whether or not you have an extroverted or introverted personality and more to do with how you carry yourself and the confidence you display in whatever your natural tendency and your mannerism is. But whether you're extroverted or introverted, you always want to be in a position where you're not that press, like as my mom used to say, act like you've been somewhere before, right? And I remember actually when I was younger, me and my sister, I think I might have been like 13 or something, and my sister was how old would she have been? Like 8 or 9. We got to go to a NAACP dinner. I think my stepdad, he had tickets or whatever because this company had like donated some money or something, and Bill Clinton was speaking there. And so it was like a very, hoity-toity affair. We had to get dresses or whatever. And so we were practicing at home, like which fork is which and which knife, is whatever. And my mom, I remember her saying, she was like, I'm just really excited to bring you girls to this event because I want you to never feel like, I don't want you to be like one of those people who have never been places or to feel like you've never been somewhere before. And she was like, you never know, you might get invited to the White House again, and I want you to feel like you belong there and like you've been somewhere before. And it was so funny because, 2016 I actually did get invited to the White House, and my mom brought that up. She was like, remember we went to that NAACP dinner and the president came and, whatever. So I think it has less to do with how vocal you are and everything to do with like your demeanor and whether you're the type of person who's pressed all the time, who has all this manic energy, which is actually something I was talking about with the women in my Success Circle community. I do like weekly videos for them and biweekly calls and all of that. And one of the things that I was telling them was about stopping yourself when you find that you have what I call manic energy around what you're trying to do. A lot of us, we get in a place where we want something so bad, which is good. You know, having strong desire is a really good thing. But we want something so bad that we bring this like manic energy to it where we're like, oh, I got to get this done and I got to do this and I got to do that. And a lot of that actually comes from a place of self-doubt and believing that you actually don't have what it takes in order to make this thing happen. That's why you're so pressed. That's why you're so frantic. That's why you're so all over the place. And so even for yourself, you know, we talk about not being pressed in terms of other people and how that looks from an optics perspective. You guys know that I'm big on optics. I have a podcast on that, so definitely check that out. But even to yourself, psychologically, if you don't want to be pressed to yourself, like you want to have an internal confidence and an internal position of certainty that I know this is going to come to pass because I know that I have the power to make it happen. And so it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time and me finding out the information that I need to find, but I'm confident that I'll find it. And so even if this doesn't work out the way I wanted it to work out today or tomorrow or even the next day, my level of certainty is so strong that I don't have to be crazy, frantic, manic, pressed all over the place. You know, I can have a position of grace about what I'm doing. Yes, Stacy says, take your time and allow God's grace and watch the power. That's it. And so that's why I'm so big on, you know, coming from a position of grace and ease, because I think we have to be careful as, you know, those chicks or that chick or women, you know, the conversation online with goal achievement and entrepreneurship. There's a lot of male voices in the space, which is awesome. Like, I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and y'all know I love me some Eric Thomas and all of that. But they come from a place of like, sometimes being so hard charging where it's like a badge of honor if you are totally like wearing yourself down in order to make it happen. And I think we have to be careful about that, especially as women, because we want to approach things from a place of grace and ease, because that is actually our manifestation of internal confidence. You know, men and women are different. And so men are very driven from like a provider standpoint and being gritty and being grunty, and I'll do the hardest work, you know, I'll get down and dirty or whatever, and that like amps them up, and that's like a badge of honor. And so sometimes we can listen to those voices and be like, oh, okay, that's how I need to be. And then we're like super gritty, super grimy, and we don't understand why we're all worn out and we're feeling burned out and depressed and like we can't make things happen, because that's not our manifestation of internal confidence. I think for a woman, your confidence is coming from a place of like total just confidence, just grace, ease, certainty, poise, you know, like I can sit back in the cut and I don't, you know, have to be frantic about making this happen. I can work, you know, smarter. I don't necessarily have to work like so hard where I'm just like grinding myself. And I had a quote in one of my posts where I was like, those who stay on the grind too long end up getting ground up. And that's not to say there aren't going to be times where you're pulling an all-nighter or where you're working really hard or whatever, but those should be sprints, not marathons. It should be something you have to do for a short period of time, and then you come back to your place. Almost, I've heard other coaches talk about it in the sense of like having a queen mentality, you know, where it's like, I'm the queen of my domain. This is how we do things here. And so, I don't know, I'm like, I like that chick or bad chick mentality or whatever. But again, whatever you want to call it, be a queen of your own space. Be a bad chick in your own space. And that doesn't mean you have to be like super frantic or super manic about what you're doing, or like, oh my goodness, I don't know if this is going to come to pass. Just practice that demeanor and that poise and that confidence and that like staying in the cut and just like, you know, working diligently. And when you need a break, take a break. And then when it's time to get back to work, get back to the work. But just like, you know, steady, ease, grace, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's my mindset. I'm not trying to be out here all burned up. Like, you know, your girl needs to get her hair done every once in a while, put some lipstick on. You know, I need time to feel like a woman on the grind. And so so that's just kind of like my position about all of that. But yay, I'm glad that you guys love it. So I'll stop ranting now and I'll get back to my work. I have some calls later. But yeah, hashtag that chick. Leave me comments below. Leave me comments on you know, my social media profiles. And also, if you love this, like you like listening to me, for lack of a better word, but you like these motivational messages and you like staying inspired. I know some of you who are on the live stream, this is your first time, and so you might not know, but about a month or two ago, I released a free mixtape, which I think is like awesome, and it has the Think and Grow Chick theme song, which is really great. It was recorded by like a professional singer, and it's like super great. So you get that full first track, and then you get a collection of some of my best podcasts that have been kind of like chopped and mixed with really cool neo soul music, because your girl is a neo soul, again, chill, laid back in the cut type of girl. And so if you want this kind of motivation and these kind of messages playing in the background as you do your work, as you wash the dishes, as you drive home from work, as you work out at the gym, whatever, I encourage you to go ahead and get that mixtape. It's totally free. So you can go to thinkandgrowchick.com/mixtape, and I'll put the link in the description and in the comments. You can download it if you don't have it already and listen to it. So with that, I will see you all later. Glad you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.